I have the Standard newspaper with me, more or less the same issues that Ram has brought up, including the plan by the Kenya Power to hike electricity tariffs and shock tragedy of the Magohas. Just the Standard also touching on that, where the tragedy that has befell the family of the late Education Cabinet Secretary, that is Professor George Magoha. And here the Standard is saying they ticked all the boxes of members of a successful family, dedicating their lives to serve in 3 corners of the world. Yeah, but the last few days and years have dampened the brothers' story. So that is a story being covered in the Standard newspaper. And on page 5, that story continues, where they are breaking down the story. The brothers are dedicated their lives to serving humanity. Kenya, US, and Sweden, they all share the wonderful gene of the Magohas. One was a decorated former cabinet secretary, that is Professor George Magoha, here in Kenya. Another one was a flight captain in Stockholm, and definitely the late brother, that is Alex, was in the US in Texas. So the Standard newspaper just giving details of the family, and just giving glowing tributes to the family. Also, at the time of the late professor's death, he was actually the one in the middle of the planning for the burial of his younger brother, that is Professor Alex Nyabera Magoha, who died in the US. So that story in the Standard newspaper. It continues again in page 6, Magoha daring icon who fought exam cheating and rolled out the CBC. So also him being remembered as a tough-talking man and who meant business when given a role to play. And so the story here is just touching on his efforts to roll out the CBC curriculum, and also him fighting exam cheating then when he was the chairman of NEC. So yeah, and doctors also have paid tribute to him, saying that he inspired them to study and save lives. So that is a story extensively covered in the Standard newspaper. And shocker, inside Kenya Power's planned electricity price hike. That's a story that we did bring to you during the news bulletin. And the reasons as to why the Kenya Power, at least according to the Standard newspaper here, that they think they need to actually increase the power tariffs is to meet power purchase costs, obligation for existing and committed additional power generation plans, enable continuous system expansion, refurbishment and improvement to provide quality and reliable power. So we'll see how that pans out. Remember that in our news bulletin we did say that the Kenya Power would like to get the citizens' opinion on that, and definitely there's going to be pushback on it, remembering that Kenyans all of us are grappling with the high cost of living, and definitely if the power goes up, the cost of living also will be affected. So those are some of the stories being covered in the Standard newspaper. And taxpayers to cough up to 75 million for lawmakers meeting in Mombasa. So if you've been following the news, there's been this meeting in Mombasa by members of parliament, and they boycotted that meeting. It's supposed to be an induction meeting. But the questions are being raised as to how much it will cost, Kenyans, taxpayers' money to cater for the lawmakers in Mombasa, yet they boycotted that meeting, at least for about 2 days or so. So questions being raised there. For 2 days, members of parliament strolled to conference hall and, to sign an attendance list and left to relax on the beach. That is what the Standard newspaper is saying. Some drove away after signing the attendance lists, and one of the members of parliament's argument is that it's not a waste of money, since what they were doing is fighting for Kenyans, and what they wanted is for the Treasury to actually disburse the CDF money. And that, I think, has already been resolved because the Treasury has agreed to disburse the money in phases. So, yeah, questions being raised whether it actually makes sense for Kenyans to cough 75 million shillings for the lawmakers. Estimates indicate that 349 members of parliament spent 5.5 million on flight fares and 69.8 million on accommodation in the hotels at the coast. So, yeah, questions being raised there.